I know I'm biased, but I love both of the programs we're taking on tour this time. Absolutely packed with masterpieces. And some of the music, like the Schumann First and like the Bruckner Seventh, absolutely the center of what the orchestra has played. And one piece by Pierre Boulez, this masterful series of notation, is really more and more part of the world of the Berlin Philharmonic. Now, I mean, Pierre Boulez in his late 80s, now one of our greatest composers and greatest conductors. And after the Second World War, he was the leader, one of the leaders of the group of people saying, what will we make of music now? And from a very tough and rigid beginning, we've all watched him flower into a composer who writes pieces which are more and more exotic and beautiful and, dare I say, friendly. The Notation were 12 piano pieces he wrote in the 50s, and he revisited later on and put them in the most incredible garb of a huge orchestra, absolutely gigantic orchestra, one of the largest orchestras we ever work with. And when you sit these beautiful little piano pieces, it's as though you had gone straight from a black and white silent film to seeing in 3D Avatar, for instance. It's in the most incredible, almost psychedelic colours. And when you look at the score, which is about the same size as my 5-year-old, it is that big because in every member of the string section is playing a different solo part. And I said once to him, I said, little Pierre, do you expect me to make all of these parts heard? He said, well, no, but Simon, if you would just think about a tree and all those leaves, you can't possibly see all the leaves, but you really know when the leaves aren't there. And so this gives the music a type of colour and texture which is very, very unusual. Each of them are short pieces. I mean, the very longest is 6 minutes long. And sometimes they sound like Ravel, sometimes they sound like the Stravinsky of The Rite of Spring. But what they're given is this extraordinary colour and experience of one of the greatest orchestral technicians who ever lived. When Pierre first came to my old orchestra in Birmingham to conduct the Notation, he was completely staggered because the last one, which is very, very fast and wild, like a firework going off, was greeted so rapturously by the audience that he had to encore it. He said, "Oh, I've never had an encore for one of my pieces before." But actually it's a very typical reaction. That, of course, the piece has a very, very strong structure about it, but it is quintessentially French in the terms of its colour, and of course in some ways Asian. The sound of the gamelan absolutely permeates the whole piece. This enormous percussion section, which seems to be taking up most of the underneath of the plane as we travel. This gives a very, very different kind of colour, and that devotees of all types of Asian music will recognise. Little Pierre is nothing if not a curious musician, so he's brought instruments from everywhere. As we play it more and more, it seems like a more and more important piece. And we so much always want to take on tour with us something that is new. The Berlin Philharmonic is determined not only to be a museum, although we make all periods of music live, or we try to, but each time to bring one great masterpiece of new music is very important to us, and audiences all over the world have loved these pieces, as I hope everyone listening will. And the Bruckner Symphony, of all of his symphonies, the most romantic, the most lyrical, the most singing, and one of the pieces that is the most profoundly linked with the orchestra and their beautiful dark sound. The pieces make a great pairing together, and I'm so much looking forward to taking it around on tour with us.